Hi, my name is Cody. I did my paper topic on the ethical debate on autonomous automobiles, more specifically, why people are opposed of self-driving vehicles in today's society. Now, to give a little bit of insight, autonomous vehicles are also known as self-driving cars or driverless vehicles, and they are vehicles that do not require the standard operations of an automobile from a driver, meaning the driver relies on the vehicle and its technology to get him from point A to point B. So the vehicle uses sensors and cameras on the outside of the car, as well as technology on the inside of the vehicle to perform the basic functions of the vehicle. Now, in terms of automation, we can categorize it using a 6-tier system for vehicles, and I'm going to show you a diagram that just kind of breaks it down and shows you also where the ethical questioning starts to come into play and where people start to become weary on if it's a good idea to have an autonomous vehicle on our streets. So here we have the 6 levels of autonomous driving. It starts with level 0 and goes all the way up to level 5. Level 0 is where we see no automation implemented into the car, so the driver's in full control. Level 2 and level 3 is where we see most of our modern cars fall into play. This is where automatic emergency braking, lane keeping support, and rear cross traffic alert, blind spot monitoring, this is where those fall in. Where the ethical debate starts to kick in and people start to question whether or not it's such a good idea is when we see vehicles in the level 3 through level 5 range. So this is where the driver is still required to be in the vehicle and he's still required to be attentive. However, he doesn't have to do most of the functions that he would normally have to do. The car is able to control its steering, acceleration, braking, pretty much on its own. Now, level 5 is where we see the driver become a passenger. He's no longer in control of the car. The car does most of the functions that he would be doing, and this is where all of the operations that a car needs is done by the technology in the car. So to start off, the idea of autonomous vehicles has been an immense topic for many, many years, and people have been fascinated by the fact that a car could potentially drive itself. And researchers have actually worked very diligently to find a perfect solution to autonomous driving. Now, during this process, scientists and lawmakers have introduced very important topics and concerns as to why it may not be ethical to put a vehicle that drives itself on the road in today's society. Now, some of the topics that they focus on is the fact that the technology that would go into the vehicle is vulnerable to hacks and cyber attacks, and they state that it could cause worldwide problems far beyond our current control capabilities. Some even suggest that the legal justice system and the aspects that follow behind autonomous driving are not up to date, or they are not ready to be used. And more specifically, people are worried about accident liability, so who would be at fault if a autonomous vehicle was to have a collision with someone else. Now, in addition to those, just the simple question of whether or not our current autonomous technology is adequate enough, that also poses a great concern for scientists and lawmakers. And they say that, is our technology ready to be put into a car that's going to handle the lives of individuals? You know, is it going to have bugs? Is it going to crash? That could be a potential issue, and many people are addressing those concerns and saying it's not ethical to put a car on the street yet. Now, when we talk about vulnerability, technology rapidly advances year by year, but so does the skills from hackers and cyber terrorists. And people are very concerned with having a car that relies solely on technology to be put on the road and potentially have a hacker come in and control it and crash the car. Now, in terms of autonomous vehicles, a lady by the name of Bianca Soar, who is a communication and PR officer for Hemdall Security, she recapped on data collected from a survey, and she said that according to a recent study which surveyed auto engineers and IT experts, about 84% of respondents were concerned that car manufacturers are not keeping pace with the industry's constantly increasing cybersecurity threats. So as stated before, Ms. Soar is worried that the technology that we have today is still very vulnerable to be hacked, and that we don't have enough security measures in place to prevent those hacks. We're more worried on getting the concept of autonomous driving complete rather than making sure that it's also safe. Now, when we talk about cyber attacks, those are actually accessing a system or network unlawfully and with immoral intentions. And Isaac Van Heerden, who is a journalist for TechnoGizmo, pointed out a recent study where two men actually took control of a Jeep that was 10 miles away, and legally they were able to tap into the system and stop the vehicle on the highway. Now, while they weren't doing this out of ill intent, it was still successful. The intrusion was still successfully implemented, and this poses very much great concern for lawmakers and individuals on if they could do it, others could too. Now, when we talk about the legality issues, the closer the autonomous industry gets to providing fully functioning level 5 autonomous vehicles, the higher the stress and the pressure becomes for lawmakers and government officials, because our current laws are not well enough adapted to be implemented for an autonomous vehicle, meaning that there is a gray area when it comes to a car that's not driven by a driver and has a collision. They don't know exactly who to blame in this case. Do they blame the driver who is in the car but the car was driving itself? Do they blame the manufacturer of the car? Do they blame the developers who developed the technology? There's a big gray area in this topic, and they are not sure if the federal government is pushing hard enough to create laws to regulate these issues, and that could create very big issues if we were to put a vehicle that is driven by itself on the road in today's society. When we talk about the underdevelopment of autonomous technology, certain tech companies state that the technology needed to successfully achieve a higher level of automation, being that level 3 to level 5 range, is present in today's society, but others provide evidence that state otherwise. So Ms. Karen Ho, who is an ethical and social impact reporter for MIT, she stated that currently the best driving assistance system incorrectly perceives something in their environment once every tens of thousands of hours. So when we are implementing this technology into a car, every life matters, and to have bugs and incorrect perceptions of items on the road could potentially put people at harm's way. And the question also in this case starts to come of, when is it good enough? Since technology is always going to have bugs and malfunctions, when will the technology be okay enough to give access to the public to use? So as researchers work very diligently to find a solution to every possible outcome, many experts like Karen Ho, suggests that releasing autonomous vehicles to the public today really could cause widespread issues now and in the future. It could also stray people away from wanting to get an autonomous vehicle simply because the technology that we had in our beta tests were laggy or glitchy or not good enough. So self-driving cars are no longer a concept of the future. They're here today. Tesla, Waymo, BMW, they've successfully created autonomous vehicles and they are on the road. Tesla has it to where once these issues of autonomous driving is met, all they have to do is do a software update and the car will drive completely on its own. The driver has to do absolutely nothing. But Tesla has it now where there are still restrictions on the car to where the driver still has to be readily attentive. So that level 2 to 3 and 4 range is where that would fall into place. So the question really is, when will we be fully ready to take on fully autonomous vehicles?